And like I said, we make no judgment. If this is how you do things, this is your thing. But we feel it's important for you to understand and be able to discern that, so that you can make a proper choice. We notice that a lot of conspiracy theorists out there do make a point of noting that mainstream media is very deceptive, but they go as far as to outline connections to people with political agendas and do all that. And you really don't need to know all that. I mean, it's good to know. It's good to be informed. But they're convoluting the entire situation. The main thing, you do not need to know who is part of this certain family in order to know that things may or may not be to your liking in the world. Just look around. That's all you have to do. Look around and observe and be honest with yourself if you cannot be honest with other people. Look and observe how things are run. Like, for instance, the media. The conspiracy theorists, the alternative media, they like to point out how corrupt and deceptive the news media is, but they don't cover the simple things like this. If you could cover the simple things like this, it would be clear as day. And some may, no judgment, but some may or may not point this out as this alternative media, conspiracy theory media, kind of keeping their investment. In other words, kind of not really wanting to change things, but perhaps not really giving the entire answer so that, nobody can actually solve the problem. Because if problems were solved, they would be out of business. Another problem with the alternative conspiracy media is that they are still subject to the system. They are still subject to needing sponsors. And in a sense, if you want to do it the way they have done it, it is unavoidable. Because the system runs on money. I mean, to sit there and have enough free time to do all this research, you would have to have some kind of funds set up for yourself to be completely independent. But you cannot. You need sponsors. And sponsors are going to have their own slant on the issue, and they're going to want you to push things. That's what sponsors get in return for their investment. And if you have a sponsor of gold investors, and you're on the air saying, don't buy gold, it's a waste of time, they're just metal slugs, what do you think the gold sponsor is going to do? They're not going to be investing in you for long. And this is another problem with the media, is the sponsorship. The sponsorship, Jerica and I did a little unofficial study. Not very official, but it was quite apparent what was going on. The main sponsors of news media is pharmaceuticals, investments, insurance, and travel. Things that depend on conflict. things that depend on having to build or even destroying so they can be built. To promote fear, to say, in other words, they almost like the media is hooked into having to promote fear in order to promote their sponsors. Because, you need these pills, because you've got so much anxiety because of all this bad news, and you need to get away and travel. It's a vicious cycle. When you've got that many sponsors that is just so codependent, it's amazing how your system works. I will say that. And there's not time in this particular communication to cover the entire thing. But it's not, I will say this, it is not as complicated as a lot of conspiracy theorists will have you think. There are a lot of conspiracy theorists who will sit there and point to these things like connections and symbols, and these do have an important effect on the subconscious. They are right, but it's not that complicated. It is very simple if you just know where and how to look. You've got to remember that these conspiracy theorists are selling books. And they are selling conferences. So they have a vested interest in giving you a lot of information, a lot of which may be irrelevant or convoluted to the point where it's confusing. And it's almost to the point where back in the day, when people used to be paid for articles by the word, so that they would just add more words in there to get paid more, and they wouldn't necessarily add to the story. And this tended to promote a lot of what we consider poor habits in communication, because it's just adding a lot of fluff and a lot of nonsense to make things seem more important. And it's really, we just consider it unnecessary. I mean, it's no judgment. It's just doesn't help understanding, in our opinion. I realize this is quite a long communication today. Jerica and I, in the past, have sat down and discussed certain topics to discuss, and that was fine for a while. But at this point, we kind of agreed to let it flow. Well, it was wonderful talking to you. I am Davrine, your Kobe the Raziel. Brightest blessings to you, and may love carry you on the wings of ascension.